Today I want to talk about a couple theories that are floating around. One of them being that Reggie Wright Sr. was caught on surveillance video at the MGM Grand, and the other that Greg Kading was also in the surveillance footage at the MGM Grand. Both of these accusations are false. There's zero proof to support them, back them up. And I'm going to show you some photos. A couple of them are side-by-side photos. And when you look at these, you can obviously tell that these are not the same people. Not only do they have different facial structures, different shaped heads, different hair, but the people making these accusations have zero evidence to support their claim, in the sense of there's zero evidence, literally zero evidence, supporting that Greg Kading was ever in Las Vegas on September 7th, 1996. Zero evidence that Reggie Wright Sr. was in Las Vegas on September 7th, 1996. Literally, there is zero evidence supporting this. The people who are making these claims, they don't have paperwork, bank statements, airline travel record, nothing. There's literally no evidence other than they watched a video and found someone who slightly resembles this person. And like I've said before, when you watch a surveillance video that is, the one that starts from start to finish, it's like 10, 12 minutes long, and it has thousands of people in it. If you're watching a surveillance video with thousands of people in it, at some point, you can find someone in that video that looks like almost anyone. It's not that hard to do. I've looked through it myself, and I found someone in there that slightly looks like me. That doesn't mean I was in Las Vegas in September of '96. Okay, so that being said, I'm going to show you some photos and let you judge for yourself. But I want to say, the people who follow the Tupac assassination theory, or whatever you want to call it, don't follow them blindly. Ask for evidence. Don't just take their word for it. Don't watch a video and take it for fact. Ask them for evidence. They have a lot of rebuttals to the investigation that was done by Greg Kading, but none of it is factual evidence. You know what I mean? It's always, well, this guy said this on a different occasion, so now we can't trust him at all. It's not real evidence. And they say that we follow Greg Kading blindly, which is a joke. He had a book, he has a documentary that lay out facts. This was a real investigation that was done by the LAPD with federal oversight from the FBI. Okay, they did a real investigation and they have real evidence. So we're not trusting him blindly. We are trusting the evidence that a legitimate investigation turned up. Okay, so that being said, let's take a look at some of these photos and you can see for yourself. All right, those photos, that was Reggie Wright Sr. back around the time in the 90s. And you can see, obviously, he has some hair on the side of his head and on the back of his head, but on top of his head, he's completely bald. And he wasn't bald because he chose to shave his head bald. He was bald because he went bald. He lost the hair on the top of his head. In the second photo that you saw, that is the man in the video that they claim to be Reggie Wright Sr. And that man has a full head of hair. Okay, and some people will say, well, that's all your evidence, is that one of them's bald and one of them's not? Yes. Okay, so one man is bald on top, the other man has hair. The hair is this thin. Okay, it's very hard. Number one, you're going to find a wig that has hair this thin on top. Number two, Reggie Wright Sr., if this, conspiracy theory ever in a different universe was true, he would have never thought, you know what, 20 years down the line, they might be looking into me for this murder, and they might dig up 20-year-old surveillance footage. And just in case they do, I want to cover myself and wear a wig just in case they see me standing next to Orlando Anderson. It makes no sense. He would have never thought that people would be pulling surveillance footage 20 years later to investigate him in Tupac's murder. Okay, so that's why it doesn't make sense. But as you can see, one man has a full head of hair, the man in the video and the surveillance footage, and the other man, Reggie Wright Sr., the real Reggie Wright Sr., is completely bald on top. Okay, so now I want you to take a look at these photos side by side, and you can see this is Reggie Wright Sr. from a slightly different angle, and you can see side by side that they have different shaped heads. Okay, take a close look. Reggie Wright Sr., the real Reggie Wright Sr., has a different shaped head than the other man. So I want you to take a close look when you look at these next two photos. They're side by side. One is Reggie Wright Sr., one is the man in the video. They have, number one has a full head of hair, one is bald. Number two, they have different shaped heads. And number three, they have different facial structure in the sense Reggie Wright Sr., you know, he is a little heavier guy, he's a little chubbier, but he doesn't have if you take a look, he doesn't have a big, you know, thing of fat hanging underneath his chin, and the guy in the surveillance video does. So, you know, unless Reggie Wright Sr. lost 40 pounds over the 2 months after Tupac's death, it's not him. So take a look at these photos. All right, so as you can see, they do have different shaped heads. Okay, so they have different shaped heads. One man's bald, one man has a full head of hair, and they have different amounts of fat on their face. Like I said previously, Reggie Wright Sr., little chubbier guy, but he doesn't have a big thing of fat hanging under his chin, and the man in the surveillance video does. Okay, so the next group of photos I'm going to show you shows a little bit different angles of the man in the surveillance video that they claim to be Reggie Wright Sr. Okay, so the photo that they've shown all of you is from a certain angle where they can slightly try to get away with it. These are a few different angles which make it very much more clear that this is not the man that they claim that it is. So it's going to be these next group of photos. I'm going to show you Reggie Wright Sr., the real Reggie Wright Sr., one more time. And that's going to be followed up with the man in the surveillance video from a few different angles. And you will clearly be able to see that this is not the same man. Again, pay attention to the shape of the head, pay attention to the hair, and pay attention to the fat on the chin. All right, so you can judge for yourself, but personally, I don't think that these two men look alike. I think the only similarities that they have is that they're black men that wear glasses, and they're a little overweight. But other than that, one man has hair, one doesn't. One man has a different shaped head than the other, and they both have different amounts of fat on their face. So I think it's pretty clear it's not him, but you know, you can make that judgment call for yourself. You know, and not to mention, if you watch the actual surveillance video that shows the, you know, the whole incident with Orlando, you'll see that this man wasn't standing there by himself. He was actually with a small group of people. He had a shorter black woman next to him and a tall, skinny white guy in front of him. And, you know, at one point they're kind of talking and smiling and stuff, having a good time. So, you know, it's not, I just don't see where this would even fit in their theory. You know, what purpose would Reggie Wright Sr. have to even be there? He never approached Orlando Anderson in the video. You know, why would he just be standing there with a group of people watching? You know, especially, you know, if they claim that they're all using walkie-talkies and they're communicating like that. Why would they need, you know, do they see this man pull out a walkie-talkie and give a command somewhere? I just don't see where it fits. But anyways, the next thing we're going to move on to is Greg Kading. This one's almost laughable. It's extremely obvious it's not Greg Kading, but we've got a few of the diehard conspiracy theorists out there that are still latching onto this one. This is one that RJ Bond and RJ Bond himself doesn't believe. He knows that this one's kind of reaching a little bit. But I'm going to show you a photo of Greg Kading. This is a younger Greg Kading. We've all seen what Greg Kading looks like now, but this photo I'm about to show you is a younger Greg Kading. So this is more what he would have looked like back in 1996. All right, so you take a look at that photo of Greg Kading back in 1996. Now take a look at this man in the surveillance video that they claim to be Greg Kading. As you can see, these two men don't really look alike at all. Greg Kading has a different body frame than the man in the video. Not to mention their hair color is different. The guy in the video has reddish hair, like a reddish blonde. Greg Kading's more of a brownish color. You know, so they just don't really look alike. You know, my question would be this: if Greg Kading was going to be at the MGM Grand, number one, he wasn't even involved in this murder investigation. Didn't even get involved into looking into Tupac's murder at all until 10 years after the murder. So unless he, you know, was a psychic and he knew that 10 years down the line he'd be assigned to this case, he'd have no reason to be at the MGM Grand. He has no tie-in to Death Row Records or Tupac or anyone in that crew, other than the fact that he lived in LA during that time. But anyway, so the next thing I'm going to show you is, you know, some more side-by-side photos. This is Greg Kading showing the facial structure. Okay, the man in the video they claim to be Greg Kading has a long face, you know, kind of a long jaw, and Greg Kading has more of a squared face. Okay, so they don't have the same facial structure either. So, you know, as you can see in these photos I'm about to show you, completely different facial structure, and pay attention to the different color hair. Alright, so can all the conspiracy theorists please put this thing to rest? You know, it's getting a little out of control now. You know, it's obviously not Reggie Wright Sr. in the video. Anyone can see these men have different shaped heads, different hair, different amounts of fat on their face. Greg Kading, he's got different color hair, different bone structure, different body frame. He's wearing a Las Vegas police officer uniform. He's involved in the conversation with Orlando Anderson, which if a smart police officer would never do, if he was trying to be undercover or something, which again, he had no reason to be there because he wasn't involved in this investigation until 10 years later. So let's put this crazy idea to rest. It's getting ridiculous. And, you know, I've got a couple more things coming. You know, we're going to talk about Corey Edwards' statement, what he really said, and did he really give Orlando an alibi? No. In fact, what he said about Orlando was actually pretty damning against Orlando. So, take a look at these photos one more time. I'm going to run them all down through. I'm going to start from start to finish. Every photo you've seen, I'm going to flash it one more time. Take a close look. Like I said, obviously I can't tell you what to think. I'm hoping that this can change some of your minds, open up some of your eyes. But I can't tell you what to think. Take a look at these photos one more time. Pay close attention to the details. Don't just look at the big picture. Pay close attention to the details, because if you do, you will be able to tell that these are not the men that they're claiming them to be. All right, I'll see you on the next video.